Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever it is that you tune in. I'm Jonathan Bengal here, host of Naked Tax Talk, where we bear down to the naked truth about our personal lives, our business lives, and of course, our monetary lives. Why? Because what I know to be true is that when we openly talk about who we are and improve the self, our businesses, which is a reflection of who we are, also improves. And naturally, the money, honeys, that is coming from those improvements is a reflection of our personal and our business lives as they continue to increase. You know, I'm often asked all the time, Jonathan, why do you have to show up on your show naked? Well, the truth is that nakedness for me is about getting and standing behind my courage. It's about confidence to be able to sit here with you and have a true open dialogue about whatever it is that we're going to talk in the next about hour or so. I'm super excited to introduce a wonderful guest named Andrew, and I butcher his last name, I'm sure of it. Andrew, is it Lassise? Lassise? He's gonna correct me in just a minute. I want to say it's French, like Lassise or something like this. Needless to say, he is quote unquote, all right, quote unquote. He says that he is the dorkestrator, and we'll probably talk about how the power of being a dork in our own businesses, of Rush Tech Support, an IT company. Are you ready? That specializes in tech support and cybersecurity. Because after all, we got to keep things locked up for accountants and also small businesses. He's also known as being listed in the Accounting Today Top 100 VARS, which I gotta ask this dude about what that means. He's also the Manifest Top 100 cybersecurity companies, and has technicians that all hold certifications with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants in cybersecurity. Folks, basically what we're saying is this dude has niched and has become a specialist when it comes to protecting your online business security, and who happens to work with accountants. So without much further ado, welcome Andrew to Naked Tax Talk Raw. And I'm so excited to see you being brave enough to come on my show shirtless like me.
You know, if we're gonna do it, we gotta do it right. And you hit the pronunciation, Lassise. It's French. You are better than most of the substitute teachers that I had growing up that just butchered it. So you did fantastic, and it's a pleasure to be here, shirtless and all.
Awesome. Shirtless and all. Andrew, tell us a little bit about, again, I know I introduced you, but in your own words, like, who in the hell are you and what you're all about?
Jonathan, I'm just some dude. But so my background, and there's a billion different ways that this can go, but I'm an IT specialist specializing in cybersecurity and IT for the accounting industry. And really the way that came about, I mean, we'll take like a gigantic story, really condense it down. But I graduated in 2009 with a degree in financial planning. And I had done an internship with the IRS. And so, as fate would have it, I graduate during one of the worst recessions in United States history. And believe it or not, Jonathan, nobody was looking to hire a financial planner during a recession that had zero experience. I had this chip on my shoulder because I was told my whole life that if you go to school and get good grades, you'll have that great job waiting for you. And so I did that. And that wasn't the case. But I had a strong background in finance and in accounting, had done my internship with the VITA program through the IRS. So as far as techie people go, I know more of the accounting world than, say, random guy that wants to talk about computers. And so we've gone from when the company had originally started, we are tech for everybody, everything. If you need something computer-ish related, we will do it. We are the people for that. And as time started going on, being the best at everything is not the easiest thing to do. And while we were still holding a very, very strong reputation, as you'd mentioned, Accounting Today ranked us in the top 100. Manifest ranked us top 100. TechReviewer.co has us like top 15. We've got a myriad of awards and things that tell you, Jonathan, we are great. We are great. Look at this award. Look at this greatness. But when we started focusing on who we could serve best, the background that I have in accounting makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the customers that we had just happened to be accountants. And the IRS put out publication 4557 around the same time, which is guidelines for cybersecurity for accountants. And so we built out an operating procedure based on what the IRS was recommending for accountants and showing them, here are the things that the IRS recommends that you do. We can specialize in doing these. Would you like us to do it, or do you like to do it yourself? And it's been very, very successful ever since we started focusing on that.
That is so awesome, because I don't know, hopefully it's not me, but I've been having by the way, I just want to throw it out there real fast. I forgot to mention this, but I'm coming to you from Las Vegas, which is not my home space, so to speak. It's actually in Phoenix. So I'm having internet issues with where I'm at. So I'm going to switch over to my cell phone. But with that caveat being said, I want to launch this off for you, Andrew, to talk about a little bit about this. So it's interesting that you said that what I love about you, and this is what turns me on, is that you understand you're an accountant. That's like your foundation. And you're a financial guru. That's your foundation. But then you built on this concept of, yeah, but I'm also a powerful nerd. And I know how a lot of this back end shit works. And so you tapped into that and created yet another, of course, enterprise. And what I love about it, again, is that you're absolutely right. A lot of IT people that I even try to work with, they don't really understand the level of security that we need as accountants, right? As you mentioned, required by law, right? Really is what it is. I mean, we don't say it that way per se, but it's pretty much well be. And needless to say, right? Like, so being able to talk to someone like yourself who also understands, like, what tax forms are, what tax returns are, this, that. And in a way, we get to talk the tax/accounting lingo to one another, while yet you still possess the language of IT. So what was it, playing PlayStation games when you were younger that kind of got you hooked into technology, or how did that get all started?
Oh man, how did you know about that? It's not like we were talking about it beforehand. Yeah, so my my introduction, like my gateway into, I guess, like the nerd world, and we'll have like, the little caveat on this is I I was a nerd before it was cool to be a nerd. Like it sucked. It sucked for me liking the things that I was into. Like I was playing computer games competitively, but there wasn't like money attached to it. It was just like what I did on Monday night.
Right.
No one was like, "Oh, Andrew's really good at Team Fortress Classic." Like the girls actually weren't knocking down my door, and I didn't have like followers. It was just what I did. But I mean, I've turned it into a career since then. But yeah, so my start down like the journey, it did start with gaming. And I mean, back like DOS 3.1, my granddad was showing me like SimCity 2000 when 2000 was the future. And so foundation there, and started getting really into gaming. And the late 90s, when it was starting to take off, Counter-Strike was really big in that era. And so what I started doing, I would see some people would have like custom skins and custom this and that. And so it would require manipulating some of the files in the game. And so that was kind of how I got my foot in that world of, I can change things that are on the screen. And from there, it's just building blocks, and it's not apples to apples, but like, if you're doing like a single person's like tax return and they have one W-2, then if they have something a little more advanced, like they have two W-2s or have a dependent, or, getting a little granular, heavier and more difficult. That was sort of where I was at that time. And had a passion for it. And in college, I had taken an IT class, and it was one of those group projects, and the partners I had in my group, like, they were dumb. And I was like, look, guys, I'm just going to do this project and I'll put your names on it. You'll just slow me down. And so the people in the group, they're like, okay, Andrew, you can just do the project for us. And so I did the whole project, turned it in, and we got our grades back, and we got a 0. And so the people doing the project, they're like, dude, what the hell? Like, you said you would do it, and we got a 0. And so I talked to the professor, and I was like, hey, you gave us a 0. He's like, oh yeah, you accidentally attached homework instead of the project, but I don't accept late work, so you get a 0. So I went to like the head of the IT department at the university and was like, look, this is bullshit. Like, I understand, like, I made a mistake, but come on. And she looked at the project, and she was like, you did this? Like, you should really like major in IT or like minor in it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, that makes sense. And so that's what I did. I used to be a stats minor, and then it was like, stats sucks. And IT came about from that. So it was a whole lot of having that interest in seeing what I could do, what I could control, what I'd be able to create on my own. And it's just built and built and built. And it's kind of one of those things, like, in my head, it like comes very easy, and people say, oh, yeah, how do you know this stuff? And I'm just like, doesn't everybody know how to like it's like, don't you know, like, Jonathan, you know how like DHCP servers operate, right? Like,
oh my god, totally. In fact, so much so that I might have messed up my website trying to do it myself a few days ago. So yes,
probably. See, everyone knows the stuff.
Everyone knows. Well, it's interesting, because that's how I feel sometimes about like taxes or about business sometimes. And I'm like, doesn't everybody know the incentivization that's happening in the tax world for us as business owners? Like, for example, case in point. So I always tell my students who take rapid tax, I always say to them, when you're traveling, always try to find a way to build it into business, right? Always, it's not a vacation, it's a workcation for a reason. And so it turns out that today I'm meeting actually a fellow peer of ours. She's an enrolled agent herself. And we're going to get together and we're going to talk about a tax strategy for one of her clients. So I'm being brought in as a consultant. So boom, baby, I just converted this trip that was really started out as a personal trip. And now I just converted it into a business trip, albeit only 1 day out of the 5 days. But that's still a percentage that I now get to claim and take it as a deduction to reduce my taxes. Why? Because Uncle Sam knows, and you know this as well too, because he wants us to make money. So we spend the money to make the money. And as long as we do it for a business reason, we're set to go. So, all right. So Andrew, here, let's see. I'm finally on my computer, on my phone now. So we had to switch over. Hopefully the sound isn't too bad. So you yourself, so what is like a tip, and just a tip, would you say or share with fellow accountants out there, as a lot of us, especially for the ones that are small, like myself? I used to be just my solopreneur-ish self. But before that, so what would you say to that solo preparer of sorts?
So to the solo preparer of sorts, there's a million different things that are required for compliance, but there's also that level of, does this apply to me, right? I'm not a firm that's got 70 employees in multiple locations, and, does this stuff actually apply to me? And the answer is yes. However, there are different varying degrees of these things, because if someone says, for instance, on publication, you need a firewall, and we don't have to get into like the techiness of like what a firewall is. Like, people have probably heard the word and they're like, is that antivirus? And it's not. But you've heard of
it was. I thought it was antivirus.
And then most people, and sometimes it's bundled in. It's different though. And
okay.
So there's like free firewall that comes with the computers, the software firewall. There's relatively like prosumer ones that are like $400 or $500, and then there's enterprise ones that are tens of thousands of dollars.
What would
And
be the difference? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, what would be the difference between like those different levels? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of cheap, so I also know that there's value though there. So what would be the value difference between those different things?
that's a great question. So if you're looking at it, it really depends on the use case and what your current environment looks like. So for instance, we'll just take different scenarios of what each one looks like. So
Okay.
I'm in my house right now, and I have a prosumer firewall. It's maybe $300, $400, and I don't need it. If I didn't have it in my house, it wouldn't change anything. The reason I have it in my house is I like to play with these things, and
It's
that's
the
why.
nature of what you do.
Exactly. And I write it off as a business expense because I am learning this for my business. So I get
Ba-boom,
I
cha-ching.
get discounted toys as
Yeah.
a result of my continuing education. So what your free firewall would do, what geez, I'm trying to think just examples of where it would play in. So people that are gaming, for instance,
Okay.
and so you've got internet traffic coming from your computer to a server, and that server could be located nearby. It could be located in another country. It could be somebody else's computer if it's privately hosted. So what's going on behind the scenes is internet packets are being sent back and forth. And the firewall is the one that's going to say, yes, you can communicate with this computer, or no, you can't. So regular person at home shopping on Amazon using Facebook, whatever, there's one port that handles all that. And then there's another port for email, and there's like 2 or 3 ports that are always open, and pretty much for a regular person that will completely cover you, and you don't need anything. But let's take it a step further. Say you're hosting QuickBooks in your small office, and you want some of your employees to work from home and be able to access it. Now we have to open up ports that will allow those people to be able to communicate, but we don't want to open it up to everybody. We only want particular employees to be able to access it. So we can write in, here's the 10 employees that their IP addresses can access this. And then we go to an even higher level, and we're hosting our own server and allowing other servers to communicate. And we've got blocks that are on it like, well, you can only sign in from this IP address if it is located in Phoenix, Arizona, and if anybody in surrounding areas tries to get in, they get blocked out. And there's a billion different levels. You know, this is super, super high level. But and say your phone is run through VoIP, and your phone is cracking, and people on the other end are saying, I can't really hear your people. So what you would do is you would dedicate more resources to your phone. But you can't just do that unless you've got the type of hardware and software that can navigate. This is where the traffic needs to have priority. This is where it doesn't have priority. So in a small home environment, yeah, it's fun to play around, but I don't run into VoIP issues and conflicting
and for the people out there, Sarah, it's just me. This is the educator in me. So VoIP, he's saying VoIP, and it sounds like some foreign word, which it kind of is, but he's actually saying voice over internet protocol is what he's actually saying. So for those of us that are not as techy, he's saying VoIP.
See, I fail at this too. I'd still let the nerdiness and in the last like 5 minutes of my description be like, okay, shut up, nerd, just fix
No,
it.
no. That's the thing, right? Like that's your language, man. Like that's what you talk. That's what you and I, we talk publication 347, and we talk 1120s and 1120s, coupled with Schedule E's on a 1040. We totally do that, right? But to the person out there who the hell is not a tax person, they're like, what do you just say? What? And
Well,
you're
just to
completely right.
anyone.
But it's right. It's our language. So I guess that's the thing. But I wanted to say something about what you said earlier. So we know what came to my mind when you were talking about like the level of entryway. So the first thing I thought was the word port, and it sounds to me like the French word for door, like the le port. Like it sounds like that to me. So I think, oh, it's like a doorway that opens up to allow for traffic to go through. And then when you describe like who can be in, who can let out, behind the doors, I'm picturing like this club that I want to be part of, and we're all sexy and we're all dancing away. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, here's like general access, but versus the VIP access. And if you want VIP access, like you just said, these are the credentials you got to have before you can even get into the door. And that's really what you're talking about when you're talking about a firewall.
Yeah, as far as like internet traffic goes, and it can also go the other way. Say you don't want any of your employees to surf the internet. You can
Particular adult themed sites.
right. So you can get granular blocks like content filtering, like on adult websites, or you could block the port to the internet, but still be able to send email. So you didn't just clip the Ethernet, but it's not able to use the port that accesses the World Wide Web, DNS, and all these. It's like
So
tone it down, tone it down.
It's kind of like you can get to the door, but you want to send a message. We're not going to open it, but if you want, you can slide it underneath the door to get your message across.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about.
And now
All right.
Jonathan is our newest salesman, and we're gonna get him equipped with some firewalls, and he's gonna be banging on doors. Let me explain to you
Yeah,
what this does.
Let me break it down,
Let me break it down.
I have to admit though, like that is definitely what I know is one of my talents, one of my specialties, is to take really complex concepts because I can get very complex. I mean, you and I both can do this. As part of being a nerd, this is what we are capable of doing, right? Like we can get really complex up in here and we can understand it, right? And again, like we said earlier in the show, what do you mean you don't get it? And what I do really well is I take that and I translate that into a more distillable process. Like that's what, like, honestly, I never knew what a firewall was until you came on the show today. And by you just kind of explaining that, like I said, I got the visualization and I'm like, that's it. Like, I got to share that. It's basically what you're saying going through a door. It's about who's got the key to get in and get out. And it's like you've got, okay, so if the porting or if the firewall is about who can get through the door, there's the bodyguard kind of like the antivirus then that sits there as well?
Exactly. So the antivirus, because think about it, if I was personally trying to get on your computer and steal your client's information, for instance, I'm not a virus, I'm not malware. It's just Andrew, and I don't have the right intentions if I'm trying to get on your computer and steal your files. But how do you differentiate if this connection is nefarious or if it is just some dude like on the computer? So these are things why just having an antivirus, that's one piece of the puzzle. If you accidentally download a virus and it says, hey, stop the virus, this is bad. Okay. But it doesn't stop somebody else from accessing and pulling files, taking them, stealing passwords, stealing 1040s, 1120s, W2s, stealing all the information that accountants have. I mean, you've got the keys to the castle. A 1040.
Well, we really do.
A 1040 can literally, you can commit identity theft with every piece of information on a simple 1040. You've got social security, you've got address, you've got income. I mean, you've got a lot of information there that in the wrong hands, people could do pretty serious damage with just that one document. Yes. So it's really important that accountants put these proper protections in place. So having an antivirus, that's one piece of the puzzle. But if you think about like the airport, you drive in and there's the traffic cop, right? Making sure that nobody just stops there and that person, okay, keep going. We don't want people that are just sitting here for more than 30 seconds. Like if you park the car, get that person out and keep moving. So that's like your first level. And then, okay, do you have your passport or do you have identification? Prove to us that you are who you say you are. And also get your boarding pass. Make sure that these match. And then you go through the metal detector. So there's all these different levels to make sure that you are who you say you are and that you are not doing anything illegal or dangerous or putting anybody else in jeopardy. And you can have your own protocols. In the airport, you can't have a 12-ounce water bottle, but literally anywhere else in the world, that's fine. But in the airport, we can't. So we set up specific policies based on, in this organization, we can do this, we can't do that. And so with smaller organizations, a lot of times we see just everybody has access to everything. And all right, there's 5 of us. Everybody trusts everybody. We're all cool. If something goes wrong, we know it was Susan. Like, it's very easy to figure out where these things happen. But as organizations grow and you need to have the accountability to see who clicked what at what time, having the audit trails, and these are all parts of compliance as well. But things that the larger you get, the more and more important it is, and the more difficult it is to just know. If you have like 2 people in an organization, it's either I did it or you did it.
Right.
One of us did it. That's it. So I blame you, and you either blame me or take accountability.
Sure.
But when there's 50 people and not everybody knows everybody, so what we do is we say nobody's allowed to have a 12-ounce water bottle here, because that's how we make sure that this place runs, right?
So how are you different from, let's say, like you and I? So again, because you come from the accounting background and the tax background, so like I compete against the big ones. I compete against certain organizations that turbo things through. So how are you different from Thornton's? From the Thorntons.
From the Thorntons. So, we'll take the bias out of it, right? Because everybody says I'm the best, and you can't just replace me with software, yada yada yada. So, you're taking that piece out of it. So, having granular knowledge and having a deep understanding about how to solve a particular group's problems, when you can get deeper with these things, that's how you can help the most people and how you can really hone in your skills. So, for instance, most IT people, and we'll just go under the assumption that, or I guess, this is a fair point. Like, you guys have turbo competition as enrolled agents that, well, couldn't I just do this myself? And I feel like if anyone has any sort of understanding of tax, it would be like, duh, get someone that knows it. Like, like, just think about it.
Yes.
Excuse me.
That's kind of like me, and that's kind of me, like, honestly, in the IT world, I'm like, I have no idea how this thing works. Like, no.
Right. Well, the thing is, everything works until it doesn't, right? Like, it's super easy for us to have new employees come on, do onboarding, show them how to install and something complicated like a firewall. Like, that's not something you just Google real quick. I guess you could, but it's got a bit of technical expertise attached to it. And so when you set it up the first time, set it up correctly, it's easy. You're just following a recipe. But when something goes wrong, that's where you have a much different conversation, and something always goes wrong. I've never met someone that's like, my computer just always works perfectly. Like, that just doesn't happen. So the software and the automation, things like that, are great for just getting it started. But frankly, if it always worked, we wouldn't have a job. And the benefit of having an organization like ours that focuses on proactive support. So very much to the enrolled agent doing tax planning before the year starts. And you are going to plan this trip at this time on these days. You're going to use this day for travel. We're not going to waste our weekend because we can get that one taken out. And we're not going to have business trip on travel day because that day is already given to us. So having these things planned out and having the structure similar to how you can capitalize on the best tax benefits possible before it happens.
Right.
Then you're just following the recipe and everything's easy. So same thing with us. If you come to me and say, all of my files have been encrypted and I've lost everything, my first response is, where's the backup? And most people say, well, it's in the cloud, and that doesn't really do me any good. If your response is it's in the cloud, we're screwed. That's not the right answer. If that's your answer, you've lost everything pretty much. But go on.
I was gonna say, that's an interesting comment you just said about like it all being in the cloud, because we're so used to now everything being in the cloud. And so when you're saying backup, so I'm sorry if I'm asking you these questions, because I think
no, these are the things I get every day. So it's great to have a platform to talk about them. So that's a wonderful. Let me try to guess what you're going to say.
Okay, go ahead. What do you think I would ask?
All right. So we've been doing everything in the cloud for so long. So if my computer breaks, it's okay. I can just get on a different computer and all my files are there because it's stored in the cloud. So I have cloud backup because even if my computer breaks, I can still access my files because they're in the cloud. Am I close? Is that
sort of, kind of? But I was going to go the opposite and say, well, maybe because I understand a little bit how that works. Again, because I just do. But like, I was going to ask, how do you back up the cloud? Like, 'cause that's the issue. Because I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And see, the fact that you're asking that question puts you ahead of probably 90% of people. Woo-hoo. Because, well, most people, and it makes sense, right? Like if I'm on my computer and I store everything in Dropbox and I lose my computer, I just sign into Dropbox and I've got my files. Right. So, but that's not what a backup is. That's just where it's stored. That's storage. So say somebody got into your Dropbox and deleted everything.
You're screwed.
Where is your backup? That's the answer to where is your backup, is where else is it located? And so there's a bunch of different softwares and there's a bunch of different use cases. We'll keep it super high level. But you can essentially, you could set up something local. So for instance, I have a NAS in my house and we do a lot of things through Google Drive, and everything on my Google Drive gets backed up to my NAS. So if my Google account gets disabled or banned or my files get encrypted, which would look terrible on an IT professional, but it's happened to others. So I guess I can't say that it can't happen to me. It can't, but I have backups in separate locations that are making copies of these files. So if my account, if I have a mad employee, well, again, I've already got these things in place, so it couldn't happen. But hypothetically, if I had a mad employee that got access to my fingerprint and my two-factor authentication and deleted everything, I still have the backups right next to me. And say at the same time that that happened, they deleted everything and my house burned down, it's also in the cloud. So I've got backups on backups so that if something were to happen, I'm never going to be 100% vulnerable, because the remediation will take longer. It'll be more inconvenient. It'll definitely be a pain in the ass to get it from the cloud versus sitting right next to me. But having it in different locations is so important. But it's just like tax planning. if you come to me afterwards and say, how do I get it back? The answer is you should have talked to me yesterday
Yes.
before this happened,
Yes.
and we put backup in place, because you
Yes.
never need backup until you need backup.
And just like with tax planning, it's actually it's more costly
Way cheaper.
to react than it is to be proactive. And I think that's the moral of the story, right?
Way cheaper. We actually have a client, and she's like my poster child for this. They the owner's husband thought he knew more than he did, and he did a number. We have 4 layers of backup on all of our clients, and layers 3 and 4 are just kind of like, we have them just for overkill, because 1 and 2 always get the job. Really, level 1 backup gets the job done always. Right. But this guy dismantled level 1, destroyed it. And he dismantled level 2. Yeah. And then he even got past the level 3 backup. So we had to do the first time we actually had to do the remediation from the 4th level. It was just always, it barely cost us anything, and better safe than sorry. And so he got through all those things, but it would have been about $6,000 of just the labor to get it back. But they pay a couple $100 a month, and they got everything back. It was 17 years worth of business that he accidentally deleted because he didn't understand how SharePoint works.
Oops.
In his defense, it looks like he backed everything up, but what he actually did was delete everything or empty the recycle bin to save space, and logged in to Office and emptied the backup recycle bin. And like it was
happens, poor guy.
Yeah, it was like, if I had an employee, I would use this as like an example of, let's see how good you are. Or not if I had an employee, but it would be a good way to do training for my employees of, imagine this happens, because it did.
What I got from your story, and I think the moral of the story, and what I got from it was, you live on redundancy and the importance of redundancy. And as redundant as that sounds, one must be repetitive and basically do the same thing over and over again. It's interesting. So in tax planning and in tax world, those principles also apply in the same way. As in, for example, when we tell a client, you no longer belong, on the Schedule C on a 1040, you now belong in a different tax structure altogether. And so what we see is, of course, the tax savings overnight happening, but then we see the savings year after year after year after year because of the redundancy of putting things into place. You are saying, we're going to save your ass a whole lot of pain, trouble, stress, and everything else by being redundant and essentially backing it all up. So really, you and me are alike in the same way too, because a taxpayer, entrepreneur, right, they have 2 choices. 2. They can either go do it themselves, right, and not know what the hell they're doing half the time, right, try to save some money. I know, I've been down this road, right? Or 2, they can hire a professional who knows exactly what they're doing. So when it comes to tax accountants, when it comes to our industry as accountants, what is one common mistake you might say that you find a lot of accountants doing, and what's the one way we can fix that particular mistake? Do you see a commonality?
Oh yeah, there's a lot that we see. We
Girl,
see.
we don't have time to talk.
Yeah. Well, we'll just talk about the one that I'll say this, and the listeners will be like, "Oh shit, that's me." Using the same easy password for QuickBooks that you use for your email, that you use for your Nick Jr. login for your kids, that you also use for your banking, and you also use for Trello, because it's easy to remember. And the problem is that if Nick Jr. gets hacked and your email and password combination is now available on the web. Copy paste into Wells Fargo. Hey, it worked. Now I've got access to everything. Copy paste it into QBO. Hey, it worked. Now I can see all of the client's financials. Copy paste it into all these different places. And I completely get it that it's easier to have one password. And even if it's a little difficult, still the problem of using it in multiple locations. But then the question, how do I have 8,000 different passwords and possibly remember them all? And so there's two ways to go about it. We'll start with the, really, this is the easiest way to do it, and anybody can do this. There's a bunch of different password manager software. I use LastPass, not necessarily because it's the best, but because I use it and I have used it. So it's just not, I just haven't had enough pain with it to need to find an alternative.
Yes.
So that's great that you use LastPass. And the way that most people use it is, I'm signing up on a new account, and here's my email. And now when it asks me what I want my password to be, I type in the same password I type everywhere else. And LastPass has 200 websites, 125 of which have the exact same password. And then the other 75 have that same password with an exclamation mark at the end.
Because for the record, that is the easiest way to change your damn required password after 90 days. Okay.
Yeah. We've got, and I mean, it's everybody knows, I should have different passwords, but like, it's very difficult. But what you can do with LastPass, and this is even available in the free version, when you're creating the password, it has a little circle thing.
It's an auto generator. It's an auto code generator.
And it generates a ridiculous password.
Yes.
And you just use that password and tell LastPass to save it. And you just need to make 1,000% sure your LastPass password is super strong. It's unique. It follows all of the at least 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, exclamation marks, symbols, non-dictionary word, like all the best practices of that a password should be, and have two-factor authentication, which is another free way that you can secure the crap out of your things.
Oh yes. After I was victimized by the banks, or like a thief that was like an online thief for the banks. That what you're talking about? Trust me, I went to like Fort Knox. I was like, change a milk, because that's exactly what you just said. And it's a true story. What he's telling you is the truth, people. Because I will guiltily admit that used to be me, right? Use the simple password, across platforms. And luckily, I subscribe to Capital One has a dark web alerts, like if shit gets compromised. So it turned out that the plug-in for the car, the charging system, their company got hacked. And so, of course, I was alerted, and it said that my email was compromised, meaning they got to see the email address, but the password wasn't. And that scared the hell out of me. And I was like, oh, hell no. And of course, I got victimized by the bank thieves. So I was like, oh, hell, double no. So what he's talking about is right. So we use LastPass. We use the enterprise version. I used one very complex story password. That's how I create my passwords. Like I tell a story, like, and with, like you just said, the capital letters, lowercase, uppercase, special characters, blah, 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 blah. And I have my own little system in my head. But, and it's a shame we can't talk about that in a way, right? Because then you open up yourself even more, right? But I digress.
Like, as you're saying that, like I'm telepathically being like, me too, man.
yes. I'm like, I know. We'll talk about this off camera, I guess. But so he's telling the truth, guys. Like, he's telling you the truth. What I love now about LastPass is I have it operating all the time. And by the way, I should be charging them for this episode because we're talking about them. But I mean,
yeah, they got affiliate things. I've got some. They have weak affiliate programs.
I'm not to figure this out because
there's other ones that pay better, but
because it's awesome. Like today, I had to create a password for something else, and I hit the auto generator on it, Right, it asks you what are the conditions, and then it created it, and now I just save it. He's absolutely right. We just have to memorize just one. And by the way, I found out that if you get locked out of your LastPass master code, which happened to me, you can actually recover it if it's on your phone. You can actually recover it using your biometrics. So that was cool. So.
And the other very, very big mistake, and people super, super underestimate this one, is they don't have a difficult. So it makes sense. You have a very difficult password on LastPass because that is the keys to the castle.
Yes.
What about just your regular email?
Oh, my email is also complex. So because for me, my email is my point of entry into my G Suite account, right? So if someone was to get through that, then forget it, right? We're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Well, most people just think email's email. All they're gonna do, cool, you're gonna see my correspondence with Pam. Like, I don't care. I'm not that interesting. But if your email address is connected to your bank and you forgot your password with the bank, where does that reset go?
Goes to the goddamn email account.
Goes to the goddamn email account. So if you have access to the email, you can literally reset every single password and get access to everything. And people really underestimate how much like power just having somebody's email address and password is, because they only think of email of the normal day-to-day function. Okay, you're gonna see my reminder link for today's show with Jonathan. I've been hacked.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you're just gonna but it's not. It's so much more than that, and that's why, like, you also talked about third-party authenticators. Again, that was so. Wait, are we talking humanistic firewalling ourselves? Is that what we're really talking about? In a way, from that perspective, like, because I'm thinking, like, I got to get through to my email, so I'm knocking on the door to the email account. Right, I put in my email.
I never thought of it that way. I'll never be able to present it to any other enrolled agent or a CPA other than you ever for the rest of my life that would make that connection. But yeah, it's like a personal firewall of, do you have the access to be here? Yes or no. And going through that process. Absolutely.
I think, you know what? We can translate this for accountants. Let's see if we can translate this. Hold on.
Let's do it.
Here's the translation. All right. So listen, accountants, what he's trying to say is this. It's very much like asking the question, when you look at someone's tax return who's a business owner, and we're looking at the deductions, and we're asking ourselves, do they have the right credentials, quote unquote, to take the deduction? So, for example, do they have the right purpose? Do they have the right place? Is it happening on the date of the return that we're filing it for? So these are preemptive questions we're asking before we okay the transaction to be placed onto the return. And so we're also furthering making sure that they have the receipt. That's the proof. That's the advanced layer of protection for them, right? Bringing the receipt to us when we say, do you have a mileage log? Which, by the way, no, 99% of business owners don't. But anyways, when we say, do you have the log? And then, right, they bring us their log. So by them bringing us the proof, we say you are entitled to the deduction. So in a way, what he's talking about in terms of our technology, it's a very similar process. Do you have the right to enter into the back office? Do you have the right to slip a letter underneath the door, and that's as far as you can go? That's what he's asking.
That's now going to be part of the sales presentations that I do, talking about
the commissions.
It's like they say no, and I'm like, let me quote something from Jonathan that'll really help, frame how you're looking at this. We'll send over the NDAs and the partner agreements. And
look at those.
Shoot me your W-9. I'll get you on payroll.
Do you see what he's doing? You see what he's doing to me right now? Do you see what he's doing to me? He's doing exactly, because he knows what he's doing, because this is what we do. But he's doing exactly everything that I want you, as my viewers, to be like. You see how he said, what did his first words say out of his mouth? Come on now, right? He said, we'll get the NDA in place. We'll get the partnership agreement in place. Look, he's like, listen, you're not going to just sleep with me. You got to go through a few loopholes for us to do that, right? He's setting up his boundaries. He's saying, We're going to have a contract. We're going to talk about what we're going to get from each other, la, 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 right? Then notice what he said. I'll be sending you the W-9 to fill it out, right? So what he's saying is, before I hand you my money, honey, you're going to have to make sure that you give me your information, because at the end of the year, when I go file my taxes, I'm going to say to Uncle Sam, I gave jonathanbengal.com X amount of dollars, millions of dollars.
Yeah, I was like, say the number, millions.
Millions of
It'll be
dollars.
millions.
He helped me close some deals. And you know what Uncle Sam's going to say to him? Okay, well, where's the proof? And he's going to say, it's right here. It's called the 1099. How did he create that? From the W-9. And because he knows, because I know that he's going to pay me more than $600, right? He's going to issue me a 1099. So thank you so much for that, Andrew.
So there's my proof that I know like a little bit about about business and about accounting. I know.
Bullshitting you.
I don't play, but but bridging that gap and being able to, and this is why I really do like working with accountants, is because there are so many parallels. So just like okay, you told me that this deduction is going to happen. Now show me the proof so that we can okay this deduction for you. So we see that. We actually had someone that they had been a client for 6 years, and we've got monitoring software. So if things are acting crazy, we get a ton of alerts. And the guy, clearly something crazy was going on. We were getting 1 million alerts, and it was like the science fiction of like what people think we do, like battling hackers, like dog fights, like shoot, like let me type some code real quick. Pew, pew, I can't shake them.
Put the green code in the background, like in the Matrix.
Yeah, it actually was kind of like that. Like they had a hacker on their computer, like putting malware on it, and like,
oh shit,
it never actually happens, but like this time it actually did. But it's similar to, if you're looking at somebody's books for the first time and you're doing bookkeeping for them. So when you're looking at it the first time, you don't know if spending $10,000-$20,000 a year with Microsoft is normal for Jonathan or normal for me. But after you've been looking at my books for a long time, you see, okay, they're always spending thousands of dollars with Microsoft. That's part of their cost of goods sold.
Right.
This is part of their company. This is, this makes sense.
Right.
So, but for your company, if you get $1,000 bills from Microsoft over and over and over, then that's a red flag. So when we first are doing our onboarding, it's a lot of the same discovery process of what is normal behavior on this computer, what is abnormal behavior. And I mean, this one in particular, it was like they uninstalled several of our products. So it was like, obviously they're trying to get rid of us. Then they installed like 7 different unattended access software, which just like screams red alert.
That's
and
like,
then
I gotta tell you something. That's like the time this person was getting ready to move, because we were raising our rates, let's be real. And so we started getting the alerts that the other CPA firms were being added to the QBO account. And it was like, oh yeah, we know what you're up to. But listen, I know nothing. And at the end of the day, it set us both free. But anyways, continue.
Yeah. And that's what he had told us. He said, oh, I'm working with somebody local. He's like, I'd feel more comfortable if I was working with someone local. And, I don't really know who you guys are. And I was just like, Roger, you've been a customer for 6 years. How is there any question of like our legitimacy at this point? Like if it was the first couple weeks, I get it. Yeah. 6 years. And like you said, if somebody costs less than us and you want to go that direction, you could say they are charging a lot less. I got a great deal from them. It's my brother's nephew's kid. I have to do him a solid. Make an excuse. Saying that you're not sure if you could trust us, it's not really the best look. I mean, there's
It's not
literally
the
like
best breakup line, right? It's not really about you, it's really me, you know.
right, but that's very different. That's like it's not you, it's him.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Let's
He's
talk
not
about
even
this real
part of
fast.
this, but
Let's dedicate about 5 minutes to this, and then we're gonna wrap this up because I do have actually have a professional date. I shouldn't call it a date, but I have a professional meeting with another EA. So we're gonna talk about some tax strategies for a client. So we're gonna wrap this up, but I wanna talk about that just for a second. How many of us are afraid to let go of a client? Right. And especially a client that doesn't value you and abuses you and uses you and really doesn't even understand your value. Andrew, have you ever been through that before? And if you have, how did you come out of the other side?
oh man, this is like what separates the entrepreneurs from the entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
The being able to say no to somebody that doesn't value you, and I'll say it now. You know, we've been in business for over 7 years now, and we've
Yay.
got thousands of customers. So it's so much easier to do this now than it used to be.
Yes.
But letting go of the BS clients, one of our clients, they were the perfect worst client.
Yeah,
They
we've all had those, I think.
right. They called all the time. They didn't take our suggestions. They actually had a ton of problems with their firewall, which we didn't install, but they wouldn't pay for a new one. So we had to keep supporting this garbage that it wasn't our fault, but it became our problem. And we had told her, you need to purchase backup. One of your hard drives died. You don't have redundancy anymore. These hard drives were purchased at the same time. One of them just died. Thank God you have a redundancy, but you need backup. Otherwise, you're going to lose everything. She said, sounds expensive. The next day, she lost 30 years of business and then blamed us for it. And it was like, yeah. So, but she was one of our higher paying clients. And eventually, like I'll share with this one, I wanted to keep getting abused by her because that money was wonderful, and I just let her just be a jerk to my staff, a jerk to me, undervalue, over abuse our services, take everything, just huge headache. And eventually, I don't know if it's like great news, like COVID just destroyed their business, but that's what happened.
Karma's the bitch, I think is the saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think we went our separate ways, but she also got hit with like her internally, like her right hand person, like embezzled like $100,000. It was actually kind of a sad story, but yeah, karma hit it pretty hard. So in that instance, I kept taking the abuse, and my staff was not happy that we kept dealing with this abuse. And it kept being like, okay, well, if you're going to find thousands of dollars just out of nowhere, then, be my guest. And so it was a bad situation all around, and it resolved itself thanks to COVID. But the learning lesson from that, when she stopped paying her bill and all the stuff happened, and we kept surviving, we did, and she made up such a small part of like the percentage because there's so many clients. I was doing the math the other day. Like if we lost our top 10 clients, and I'm not challenging you all to leave, just saying if we lost our top 10 clients, it's only like 5% of like all of our sales. So it's not like that piece is going to destroy us. But moving forward after that situation, I'm stealing this from Mike McCallowitz, one of my favorite authors. But no dicks. We don't do business with dicks. If you're an asshole, you cannot do business with us.
Yes.
And we just, it's difficult, like when you're in that first kind of onboarding stage, like, is this person like, are they uneasy? I mean, we're taking over a whole lot. And it's just like when you take a new accounting client and you're looking at their books and they're a mess because their last accountant wasn't doing anything, was just charging them, and then just clicking accept all, and your balance sheet doesn't balance. And
oh my God.
I'm speaking from experience after getting slammed by Uncle Sam to the tune of a small house in Boynton Beach, Florida's worth of whoopsie daisies and penalties and fees and fines to discover that my trusted advisor should not have been trusted, and that it happened to a lot of my friends too. Is unfortunate. It's like in our circle. But back to the question of afraid of letting clients go. I've never let someone go and then regretted it.
Yes.
I've never sat back and thought, I really need that money and I'm going to undo this breakup. And it doesn't happen often. I mean, part of the job is just, okay, yes, you're right. Yeah, I'm dumb, you're smart. Yeah, sure. That's why you keep getting these problems, because I'm dumb. Right. None of my other clients have this problem, but I'm dumb. Thank you. We'll just keep this on chat and just sorry I didn't answer your call. Just chat. But I've never regretted it.
So Andrew, once again, listen, if you're an accountant, because who you nichely work with, but you also mentioned that you also support other small business owners. So for that small business owner, who are they, and should they be afraid to contact you at tech4accountants.net?
So no, they shouldn't. But for the show in particular, we went the hardcore Tech 4 accounts, and I think rushtechsupport.com right now is actually doing a 301 redirect. So if you were messing with your domains and stuff, we can join the party with web traffic movement. We have to change the servers, I believe. But so what we've discovered though is that all the work that we do for accountants and in the compliance field, it's a lot more work. And there's a lot more kind of BS that's like checking a box for compliance that, like, in the real world, do we need to be doing this for everybody? And it's case by case. And a lot of times the answer is no. Like, can we make this crazy hidden Wi-Fi and knock out all the pieces of their computer when they don't even have a server just for the sake of making it more difficult? Yes. And for accountants, because it's part of compliance, we do it and we hate it, but it's part of compliance. So we do what we're told. But for small businesses, we still take that accountant SOP that we've built out for really, really high level security that we do at scale.
Procedure.
Yeah, the standard operating procedure, exactly, that we apply for accountants, and then we tailor it to whatever business is in front of us. So it's the amount of protection that accountants need, but we've managed to standardize our stack, our antivirus, our backup, everything. All of our clients look very much the same. So it's easy for us to maintain, because you throw something at me saying WebRoot told me this issue. We know how to fix every single WebRoot issue ever. Like, we've just seen so many of them. Right. But if all of our clients were using Avast and Norton and McAfee and all the other obscure random ones, we could still support it, but it's more difficult. So we get everybody on the standard stack so they fit our mold, so we can fix problems quicker. We have less problems because everybody is being issued. It's not exactly you look like you, and here is your prescribed, tech support, but more or less 95% of it doesn't matter if you're an accountant or you're a lawyer or you're a title company or you're a doctor or dentist, chiropractor. I mean, we've got every industry you can think of, construction, but we applied all of the principles from the accountant build out because it's easy to follow if you know what you're doing. It's very well done. Like, publication 4557 is actually, like, from a tech perspective, it's like, okay, this is pretty good. Like, Alta, who does title companies, they have like their cybersecurity guidelines, and like reading it from a tech perspective, it's like, don't follow this. You're an idiot. It's like, have at least 2 antiviruses, and it's like, that's 101 stuff. Don't ever have more than one. It's very, very bad.
So really, what I love about it is, if I may put this in here. So when I teach my intensive 2-day training to my students, I actually teach them the number one formula that all business owners utilize and follow. And are you ready for it? It's
I'm
the
ready.
accounting formula. That's what it is, right? Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. And the truth is that is the foundation that business owners follow to make decisions about their business. And in a way, it's standardizing it. So I love what you just said, which is, you said, and it's true. We as federal agents, one capacity or another, right? No matter what how do I say that? But we working with federal government and you, taxpayers, because we're held to a higher standard now for security. In a way, we still become the foundation, even in your world, of security. And from there, you're just like, you build out the rest. Like, again, we accountants geek out on all kinds of shit on the balance sheet and the P&L and things, right? Like, we totally go crazy.
Oh yeah.
Whereas maybe just the owner wants to just know, am I making money or not, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what you're saying here, which is, you're saying the foundation is what accountants need for security protocols directed by the IRS, which is really an arm of the government saying, this is what you got to follow, fools. Or, right? And so then you're saying everything else underneath that really, I freaking love that. Okay, check this out. It's 7:06 p.m. here, and I got to get ready for my consultation with another one of my peers, because we're about to save a client big ass money. So that excites me. So we didn't get to the chance of asking tax questions, but that's okay. I actually really enjoyed this conversation of the need to secure ourselves. I wanted to leave off with one funny thought, and that's just because of who I am and everyone who knows me. So when you were talking about, like, if you're out there and it's about using your email, your password for everything, right? So what thought that I came to was, like, that's like having unprotected sex. You're just throwing it out there for everybody to have. Whereas if you really want to protect yourself, you might want to put on a condom where you keep all of your passwords inside of, and only you are the only one who can unroll it to get to all your passwords. That's just the thought that came to my head.
That's I think I'm gonna stop all the analogies that I had been using and just jump to that one. I'll actually just take this clip and just post it everywhere. Anytime someone wants to talk about passwords, be like, I think Jonathan said it best.
Yeah, well, listen, this is how I teach. This is how I teach my class on sex and entities. I talk about what it means, right? So safe sex is your condom, right? Dental dams are your LLCs, and unprotected sex is a solopreneur. So, we never forget. Because the truth is once we use the sexual analogy, I think for a lot of us, no matter how taboo we all get, like, oh my God, he said the D word. Ah! But the truth is it sticks. Like, I guarantee you're never going to forget, are you?
Never.
No, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, it's like having unsafe sex. All these passwords, the same password in all these other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas keep it in the condom, man, and then roll it back when you need it, and you'll get access to your passwords.
Duh.
Duh. So, anyways, Andrew, I'm so thankful that you were here to join me and my wonderful peoples that were watching. Those of you that have watched now or post production, thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's episode. And Andrew, without guys like you, and also we also know women do this too in this industry, but without guys like you that really do not bring forth our protection to keep our taxpayers safe and really ourselves, right? At the end of the day, we're all working together towards the good of you, the entrepreneur, the taxpayer. If you'd like to know more about Andrew and his company and what he can do to help excel you, to provide you the ultimate layer of protection that we talked about, tech number 4, accountants.net is where you can find more about him. If you'd like to know more about how you can utilize his services as a tax write-off to your business and how to think like that, stop on into my course, Rapid Tax Savings Formula, where I bring together the 5 pillars of profits, and we talk about how we use investments as a way in which to reduce our legal taxes downward. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me here. Any last final tips, and just the tips you'd like to share before we come off air?
Yeah, just the tip. At the website there is a free audit, so you could sign up from it. I believe there's probably a comment in there. Just say it came from the podcast, and we can let you know we can do this metaphorical STD check to let you know if you've currently got anything and what kind of medication you would need to get those bumps off your thing.
Off your computer. Let me tell you, you know what? When I got my first virus, this is years and years and years ago, like early 2000s, I remember, right? Because we don't know what we're doing. I was in my 20s. And when I remember when my computer got a damn virus, I really felt like I'd slept around everywhere and I got an STD. That's how I actually felt. I was like, oh, you dirty little thing. Like you went and got an STD from someone else. Never again. Safe sex all the way through, including your firewalls. So, so with that, I'm Jonathan Bengal here, host of Naked Tax Talk Live Raw. I was joined with Andrew. And with that, again, you know how to contact him. You want to get a hold of me because maybe you like what I'm all about. Feel free to visit my website, jonathanbengal.com. And of course, if you're interested in the show or you want to be a guest on my show, send an email to letsgetnaked@nakedtaxtalk.com. Thank you, Andrew, again. And until then, toodles noodles. And remember, everyone, the reason why you became an entrepreneur is because it's all about the mucho, mucho, mucho dinero. Until next week, I'm out. Toodles.